When I made a sarcastic Let's Play video of Serious Sam as a shout out to some commenters on my channel, I had no idea it would be so controversial. Well, it turns out Serious Sam is a fucking cult, and its apologists take criticisms about a work of fiction about as well as the Church of Scientology does. That's good satire. If you've watched more than half a video on this channel, you've probably figured out that my comedy shtick is to use sarcastic logic to make fun of video games. It's my one note, and I play it very loudly. Obviously, that won't work with Serious Sam, because fans of the game are very thin-skinned and can't take a joke. No, I'm kidding. It's because Serious Sam doesn't try to be a logical game. Ha! Come on. You know Serious Sam fans are a wise, tolerant people. My point is, it wouldn't make sense to complain about the stuff I normally complain about in a review, like how the Tommy gun has a reciprocating bolt handle that intrudes into the sighting plane, or this stupid piece of fluff text that tells you it was rechambered for 5.56 instead of 45 ACP, despite the fact that the gun just isn't the right size for that to work, and that the magazine is too fucking short for a rifle cartridge. But fuck it, it holds like 900 bullets and doesn't need to reload, so obviously they didn't care that much. The only copy I have of the first Serious Sam game is the HD re-release on Steam, and I'm not going to buy the classic version or god forbid a physical copy just to do this teardown video, so bear with some inconsistent aspect ratios throughout the video. Hilariously enough, I got some comments on the Let's Play from people who honestly thought I didn't know it was an HD remake, even though it's got HD in the title and I talked about playing the original more than 10 years ago. Listening comprehension is not the internet's strong suit. Most of the footage you see will be from Second Encounter Classic, Serious Sam 2, and Serious Sam 3 just for a more authentic viewing experience. I underestimated how much machine I'd need for Serious Sam 2 and captured on a Windows XP machine. As a result, I had to lower the resolution and drop some of the fancier settings. So it would look better than you see here on maximum. Some comments told me that Second Encounter is where the series stopped sucking so severely, so we'll call that a happy accident. In my Doom 2016 video, I praised Doom 3, to an extent, and bashed Serious Sam, which drew some ire from the less intellectually benighted viewers. That means y'all dumb fuckers got mad. Yes, both games have a similar approach to enemy placement. Walk into a room, the door closes like it's fucking Zelda or something, and enemies pop out of spawn closets and teleport in around you screaming, "Gotcha!" It sucks in Serious Sam, and it sucks in Doom 3 too. The difference is that Doom 3 makes up for it with shockingly beautiful level designs and graphics, a pretty good story, and surprisingly immersive storytelling. There are mitigating factors in Doom 3 that make me want to suffer through the bland combat because there's more there to see. Serious Sam's one party piece is the combat, and even when the combat is firing on all cylinders, the game does not even begin to approach fun. I have never so much as cracked a smile when playing a Serious Sam game, except that one time I was ripping on it for some friends of the show. And you pussies pitched a fucking fit about that. So we're back to basics. Fun is for losers, time to be serious. Treeghettox was one of the guys who convinced me to give Serious Sam another shot on hard difficulty, which led to that Serious Sam Let's Play video. He made a rebuttal video with some good points, linked below, and I had a great time arguing with him in the comments. Check it out and decide which of us gets the title of Master Debater. The important thing is, he's still wrong. He contends that people who don't like Serious Sam dislike it because it was too hard and didn't have enough story. Close, but no cigar. The game is too boring and has a bad story. Those are actually kind of the same thing. If I'm going to invest time in a game, it has to earn it. When I gave up on Serious Sam the first time, it was after playing the game for about half an hour, getting apocalyptically bored with the uninspired weapons they gained from Doom, the half-hearted enemy design, and non-stop boilerplate combat. So what games did I go back to playing after that? Age of Empires 2 and one of the MechWarrior games, I forget which. Complicated games that require you to put in time and effort to learn complex systems. I'm certainly not averse to learning how to play a game. If, for example, I play a multiplayer game for a while and then stop, it's not because it's too difficult, it's because the game is not interesting enough for me to invest the time to get better. This doesn't happen all the time, but with games like Red Orchestra 2 or Rising Storm, Battlefield games from Bad Company to Hardline, even free-to-play shit I'm not quite convinced I love like War Thunder, I will put in the effort until I can consistently be a top-ranked player on the winning team. And I know most gamers are like that. Yes, I'm sure some fans of walking simulators and Telltale interactive cutscene games would dislike Serious Sam because they don't like actively playing their games. Hell, some people can't play FPS games at all because of motion sickness. But that's not why people generally dislike Serious Sam. We don't want to waste our time with Serious Sam because there are plenty of other games that require player involvement and are also interesting. Defenders of the series seem to be a bunch of shambling masochists who only play games for the difficulty and unironically tout the PC master race. Hey genius, drinking a quart of bleach is difficult. That doesn't mean surviving the ordeal is an accomplishment. When you wake up in the hospital, you'll be placed on suicide watch, not a fucking podium. What a game like Serious Sam offers is the opportunity to brute force your way through by learning encounters through trial and error and quick loading until the numbers wear off your F9 key. I don't play single-player games for a sense of accomplishment, which is why I really dislike puzzle elements. Solving a puzzle in a video game isn't like finding a creative solution to a real problem, it's like finding the one answer to an abstract puzzle the designer made. I don't feel any pride in determining the predetermined solution to a puzzle that was meant to be solved, or by finishing a game that was designed to be beaten, however hard it may be. I see the comparison to old-school NES and arcade games being made, and it's a good one, but maybe not for the reason that you think. Yes, arcade games and NES games were brutally difficult, but not as some artistic statement or because design is law or any of that horse shit. Arcade games are hard, so you'll die and they can sponge another quarter off of you. NES games are hard because the cart holds no data to speak of and the game would be short as fuck if you didn't have to retry a bunch of times. They have to trick you into thinking you're getting your money's worth. Trial and error is always bullshit because it means that the encounter was never meant to be winnable on the first try. You cannot beat Metal Slug on 1 credit, get it? You can make a 1 credit run through of Metal Slug, but only after your lifetime total of quarters spent on the game eclipses the daily take of a fucking laundromat. These old games were immediately engrossing because of great music, great graphics, fun and exciting gameplay, and quality oozing out of every pixel. Then the difficulty level kicked your ass to the top of your head because they needed to slow you down. With those games, the difficulty was something you put up with because you wanted to play them. If in the process you got Stockholmed into enjoying the difficulty because it fostered a false sense of accomplishment, that's your business. For me, the difficulty is ancillary to what is already a great game on its own, and still would be if it wasn't so hard. Nobody wants to play Serious Sam. Even when it's not difficult, you're thinking of just turning it off and playing anything else. Easy mode is brainless, normal mode is boring, and when you crank up the difficulty, the game becomes a Gandhian exercise in patience. And like with Metal Slug, Serious Sam is pretty short. The arcade model has to leverage money out of short games to make up for the development costs of hardware and software. Metal Slug and most of those legendarily difficult NES games like Castlevania and Contra are filled with situations that are virtually guaranteed to kill you on the first try. The same is true for Serious Sam and to a lesser extent Dark Souls. Fans of games like Serious Sam and Dark Souls will be heard to repeat ad nauseum the phrase tough but fair. A more accurate descriptor would be tough but also unfair. If Dark Souls was a fair game, enemies wouldn't be able to hit you through walls or change direction during a mid-air attack, and dodgy collision detection wouldn't send you rocketing off a cliff to your death for no reason. Having a bunch of enemies spawn on top of your head and kill you is fake difficulty. They didn't earn it, there was no way to see it coming, and there was no way out. When you try again, you play that segment like a crazy person, moving erratically and firing rockets at places you know enemies are going to spawn. It's the action game version of jump scares. They only work once, and they're so cheap they keep Wendy's salt packets in the pantry. The same is true for bullet sink enemies. I will never finish a playthrough of Marathon on Total Carnage difficulty because it's just boring. Giving enemies so much health that not all the bullets in the game can kill them, forcing you to inexorably punch them to death for 5 fucking minutes apiece. That's not real difficulty, it's just a boring waste of time. Real challenge is when you are presented with a situation that you can get through on the first try by being prepared and adaptable. Blind ambushes and bullshit Kaizo traps are a way to waste your fucking time or get a laugh out of jaded Let's Players. Ultimately, a game is not good just because you're good at it. After all, there are some amazing athletes playing soccer, but the sport is still as boring as a season 22 Simpsons episode. For my European viewers, substitute soccer for baseball, basketball, or whatever your least favorite boring American sport is. Alright, now I'll talk about why the game is so fucking boring. Like Doom 2016, Serious Sam is not an old-school game in the vein of original Doom, Quake, or Marathon. Serious Sam was the vanguard of the arena shooter, where you get dropped into an arena and have to fight waves of enemies to get out. You're rarely killing monsters to progress through the level, and the areas have no value. You don't kill monsters because they're in your way, they just happen to be in the same place as you are and the exit door is locked. In Serious Sam, you're killing time as much as you're killing monsters. That's not how Doom and Marathon worked. Those games were more like maze shooters. The goal was to explore the level and find the exit, and the monsters were an obstacle. Serious Sam, Doom 2016, and Painkiller are mostly about short hallways connecting small arenas that wouldn't look out of place in Unreal Tournament or Quake 3. When old school shooters put you into a death arena, it was always as the culmination of something big. They didn't just construct the entire level out of coliseums connected by corridors. Serious Sam is only old school insofar as it rips off wholesale the weapons, ammo, armor, and health system of every id shooter ever made. The Serious Sam style arena shooter isn't all that popular, God only knows why, so the default comparison is always to Painkiller. Painkiller definitely isn't my favorite game, and I think the gameplay is even worse than Serious Sam. But there are enough interesting aspects to the game that it makes me want to play it before the claustrophobic arena grindfest kicks my willing suspension of disbelief right in the nads. Painkiller's Heaven vs. Hell plot is a cool jumping off point, and the dark Gothic architecture, while somewhat overdone compared to Serious Sam's huge Egyptian temples, is at least interesting to look at. The starting weapon is half chainsaw and half laser cutter. It's so abstract it's hard to describe succinctly. The alternate fire shoots out a little blob that deals damage to enemies but can also attach to surfaces and then project a beam back at you if you're facing in the right direction for use as a laser clothesline. And you can shoot the spinning blade bit out as a boomerang to chew up a column of enemies. It's an interesting weapon, and I appreciate any time one of these ostensibly gonzo games doesn't fuck around with a boring starter pistol. Serious Sam, by comparison, has an aesthetic I can only describe as stupid. Lazy, malformed character designs, charismaless protagonist failing miserably to imitate the comedic machismo of Duke Nukem, and a plot which wants to be epic but isn't trying hard enough. None of Sam's one-liners connect.
Hey, didn't I kick your ass 2 rooms back?
You're right, Sam, the level design is boring. Serious Sam's weapons are a sick joke, too. A pair of Schofield revolvers that fire and reload in weird, inconsistent patterns and don't seem to animate properly. Both of the shotguns from Doom 2, but without the impact. An Elephant Man Tommy gun that is chambered in 5.56 instead of 45 ACP, despite none of the parts being shaped appropriately for that canonical brain fart. And then the single gayest looking rocket launcher I've personally ever witnessed in a video game. Eventually you get the quad-barreled laser cannon, which is awesome, even if it's basically just another rapid-fire slug thrower like the Tommy gun or the minigun with the added benefit of bullet travel time. Serious Sam's super weapon is the cannon, which is the best part of a game that admittedly sets a low bar. Weaker enemies just get insta-gibbed by the huge cannonball, and eventually it creates a huge explosion. Holding down the fire button charges the shot for a flatter arc like with the grenade launcher. Does it matter that the cannon bore is the diameter of Sam's arm, but the cannonball is as tall as he is? No, because we're not using logic, or common sense, or the other 98% of our brain cells. Second Encounter adds the Doom Chainsaw, the Unreal Tournament Sniper Rifle, and an Flamethrower.
Look, Ma, I'm a lumberjack.
Enemy and weapon descriptions are added to a codex that contains the most horrible dreck it is possible to imagine. Enemies are given a ridiculous amount of lore, but nothing within the game itself justifies these inane backstories. Compare this to Half-Life, where every monster in Black Mesa had an origin and a purpose that made sense. The Nihilanth didn't just shit out a bunch of random aliens from his slave menagerie on top of a canyon and say, "Now when Gordon comes through here, all of you charge him in waves." Another fun comparison is teleporting enemies. In Half-Life, a game all about teleportation, a game where the enemies don't exist in this dimension normally and have to portal through, that makes sense. In Serious Sam, some of the enemies are there already, some have to teleport in, and some just legitimately spawn. Like they didn't even bother to have them teleport in, they just pop out of Z-space. The only way it could be any worse is if they were still holding their T-pose until they hit the fucking ground. When they actually go to the effort of having them teleport in, it just raises questions. Is teleporting a thing in this universe? If so, why do the aliens have spaceships? And why don't they take a page from Tycho's operations manual and teleport Sam into space? The enemies in Half-Life also had an interesting dynamic to them. Aliens are trying to create a foothold on Earth, soldiers are trying to cleanse the facility, and some monsters are just alien wildlife trying to find something to eat. Throw that on top of what were, at the time, revolutionary scripted set pieces and extremely detailed realistic environments, and it doesn't matter for a second that the gunplay is still just Quake. Serious Sam has awful monster designs. No, graphics aren't everything, but I'll argue till I'm dead that the visual design is important. Graphical fidelity I care very little about, and I don't care if a game looks crude if there is some creativity behind the aesthetic. Yes, Serious Sam is fast and fluid, and you might just be a big fan of large-scale action. But there are other games that do that, and don't look like the drawings in the margins of a third grader's composition book. Serious Sam features such classics as the ice-skating skeleton that throws bolos, generic soldier guys with no heads, who have to carry their own heads in order to see, except when they don't, like in the case of the generic soldier guy with no head and a Looney Tunes Acme bomb in each hand. There's the walking rectangular Cyclops and the flying heart-shaped Cyclops face. The Scorpion King, only with less convincing CGI. I liked him better when he was called Mizar. There's a bipedal brainwalker with a shark for a face. Oh god, I can't take it. These are so aggressively stupid I can feel my brain leaking out of my fucking nose. Look at us, we're so zany. The monsters look so bad and animate so poorly that it makes me angry just to look at the game. The 10-second music cues looped ad nauseum and Sam's humiliating one-liners make me angry just to listen to the fucking game. The lazy ambushes, hordes of identical enemies, and lack of any compelling narrative make me angry to play the game. But Serious Sam 3 deserves special attention. The first two games, First Encounter and Second Encounter, came out in 2001 and 2002 respectively. The third game, ostensibly titled Before First Encounter, yeah right, didn't see the light of day until 2011. Crow teams in between years were spent making a sequel to Second Encounter called Serious Sam 2, and more importantly, a sequel to the original Serious Engine called Serious Engine 2, which was licensed for even fewer games than Serious Engine 1. How many fewer? All the many fewer. Serious Engine has always been the little engine that nobody wanted, instead of the little engine that could. Serious Sam 2 embraced the cartoonish buffoonery that was always present in Serious Sam, and also rolled in most of the obligatory game design elements from 2005, like vehicles, physics puzzles, and levels right out of Far Cry. Your mileage may vary, but when Serious Sam embraces the inherent goofiness in the premise, I hate it a lot less. It helps that this is the only Serious Sam game that doesn't look like reheated ass, and it has good music. But after a lengthy hiatus, the series came roaring back with HD remakes of both halves of the first game before the release of Serious Sam 3. As the name suggests, BFE is a prequel that takes place in buttfuck Egypt. Again. Geez guys, kinda hard to go back to the well if you haven't left yet. At least Serious Sam 2 made an effort to move the ball forward, but from what I've seen, the fans don't like it, probably because it was cross-platform with the Xbox. I'm kidding, it's because of turret segments, explosive barrels, and cutscenes galore. It's my favorite in the series, but maybe that's just because it has the best gatefold art of all time. BFE tries to merge the modern style of shooter with the Serious Sam arena shooter, and along the way totally invented Doom 2016's glory kills. The weapons in BFE aren't lifted directly from id anymore, and weapons and armor are now on tables or tucked in cabinets instead of floating in artistic shapes on the ground. The QuickTime cutscene kills can get extremely spastic since you teleport when you use one. Your camera is also arrested and yanked all over the place, and the narrow field of view makes for animations that are just nauseating, man. This clip right here is Serious Sam Stone savagely stomping a shitload of stupid spiders with his size 16 shoe. It reminds me of the chaotic clusterfuck created by clicking constantly to kill a cadre of Kabbalistic Demons in... Okay, I'll stop. It reminds me of using the Berserk power-up in Doom 2016, when all you have to do is tap mouse 1 a dozen times to teleport around the arena ripping spines out of hell beasts. Just, you know, not in a good way. It's very off-putting to try to kick a charging bad guy only to teleport around a corner into the waiting gun barrels of his friends, and unlike in Doom 2016, you don't get invincibility frames while doing so, because it's not really a game mechanic. Off-putting is probably the best way to describe the whole fucking series, as long as I'm on the subject. Second Encounter starts with Sam flying a massive spaceship off to new fights on alien planets, but instead he crash lands back on Earth and has to fight his way through a slightly greener version of the first game. BFE's story opens with Sam riding into the hot zone on a Black Hawk, trading quips with his team. How awful is this game? Let me count the ways. 1. The Black Hawk goes down, surprising absolutely no one. 2. Despite this game taking place in the future, where humanity has explored the entire universe, the air vehicle of choice on Earth is still an early 90s Black Hawk, and the army is still using an AR-15 with a fucking EOTech. 3. Zombies. Welcome to 2011. 4. Sam greets his old friend Smith & Wesson while picking up a Magnum Research Desert Eagle.
Mr. Smith, Mr. Wesson, glad you could make it.
Worth noting is that his original pistols were Schofields. 5. The indoor areas are a mess of tiny rooms and dead-end hallways that make exploring for secrets a major bore. 6. Oh, fuck the list. The insane thing is, after the relative quality of Serious Sam 2, BFE feels really slapped together. I don't see effort behind this game. It looks and feels like an obligation, and all the dialogue sounds like it was written in one pass. Crow Team tried to push the humor even harder, and it fell even flatter, because Serious Sam isn't Duke Nukem, and he never will be.
Hey, baby, was your daddy a pilot? Because you are really freaking ugly.
It isn't an honest attempt at humor, nor is it an honest attempt at drama that ends up being organically humorous. Most of the budget games I play try so hard to be cool and epic that it creates comedy. Serious Sam 3 looks to be trying for that ironic level of humor where they're cool because they're in on the joke. It's just hipsterism. Bad drama makes for great comedy, but bad comedy is a holocaust. Before I knew there were die-hard fans of the least serious series ever made, I assumed everybody treated it as a tech demo for an engine that never caught on. For what is ultimately a crudely bashed-together Quake alternative, the Serious engine was capable of crazy draw distances and huge numbers of enemies on screen. It was so impressive, in fact, that it was used for games like Alpha Black Zero. And that's basically it. Serious engine never went anywhere because most developers are less concerned with draw distance than they are with making a good game. I'm kidding. Serious engine is a perfectly cromulent engine that runs, it just isn't a compelling alternative to Unreal or id Tech. What I learned from making this video was that the Serious Sam series is better than I thought, and Painkiller is a lot worse than I remembered. Serious Sam is much more than a tech demo. It's a decently well put together budget game with surprisingly functional gameplay, and the sequels are actually better. Do I still think it's the worst game of all time? No, and I never really did. I just viewed Serious Sam games as dispassionately as Football Manager or Twilight Princess. I've played plenty of games that were technically worse, but none that I cared less about. By forcing me to make this video, you tricked me into caring about Serious Sam, and I don't dislike it as much as I did. Well played. You might get a kick out of it, but I never will, and that's okay. There are plenty of FPS fish in the video game sea. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Hello, operator? Give me Las Vegas.
Hello?
Blondie, is it you?
No, and don't.
Ah, when will he come?
He will come when he's done, boy.
Done with what? I've been waiting forever for him to show up.